Hi everybody, Cooper Strip Club here. I'm Simon, and today we're going to be stripping polyurethane off Shiplap. So I'll just put some on here and I'll tell you a little bit about it. So we thought we'd do a bit of a before and after thing today. So this is putting the stripper on. Keep your hand moving with the trigger. If you keep your hand moving like this, you're not going to get lots of runs. So the idea is that as it's moving, the liquid's being spread, and it just works so much better. Now, polyurethane is quite a thick, glossy. You probably see a bit of the shine on it, and a lot of people don't like that plasticky shine. And so they want to do something about it. Now, so you can see the stripper that's gone on has absorbed pretty fast, and that's the whole point of our stripper being so thin. We make our stripper very thin, and we make it thin so it absorbs. A thick stripper tends to sit on the surface and you use a lot more. Now, I just want to put a little bit into these grooves. It's all pretty easy. Okay, now on our stripping guide, it is this three-part. Probably seen it before, but first two parts are in red, and part one says strip what's on the surface. So it says put the stripper on, apply the stripper, wait for the stripper to reach the surface, which in the case of polyurethane is usually 2 to 5 minutes. It says here in the red, keep the surface wet with stripper. That's really, really critical to our system, and I'll, as you see in this here where it's got that white crusty look, that's typical of polyurethane. If this was shellac, it would just dissolve, but in the case of polyurethane, it goes this sort of crunchy white looking stuff, and we want to make sure we keep that damp with the stripper. As the guide says, keep the surface wet. We don't mean with water, we mean with stripper. If we have people that have any problems with our product, often it's because it's not being kept wet. Sometimes people think it's weed killer where you put one white coat on and it's somehow going to take a massive amount of surface off. But basically, the thicker the finish, the more stripper it needs. Now, I'm going to give this another minute. And so let's say, so what is Shiplap? Shiplap is a sort of a feature timber, or it's basically a moulding, and it's used often on, you might, sort of a 60s type house. It might be along the front wall in cedar or that type of wood, or it might be in an entranceway as you walk up to the front door. The sides are often lined in this type of thing, or you go through the front door, and that first part of the house has often got this as well. So this is where the shiplap is generally found. This one's heart remu. Now, let's say you were planning to paint this, which would be a shame, but anyway, let's say you were. Sometimes when your people, they paint over top of polyurethane, and what you find is the paint peels. It bubbles, it chips, that sort of thing, because painting over top of varnish is not a good idea. What you want is a clean, dry, absorbent surface. And there are these special sealers that people get talked into putting on first, and again, they don't work. They work better than not having it, but it's not that super successful. And every week we're at home shows, we talk to people who've got those exact problems. So we think the best way is to get rid of the finish and to have an absorbent surface. So just a last little check there. I'll just show you our brush. So in this part in here, this is a new one there. So this is our copper detail brush. It's a very soft copper bristle. It's sloped forwards, and I'll show you why that is useful. I'll leave that to a new one, so I'll get one that's partly used. And that just gets into there. Now we have this claim of no sanding, and it all sounds too good to be true, but the reality is what we're doing is reusing the sanding that's already there. When this shiplap was manufactured, it was sanded back then, back in the 50s or 60s, and that sanding is still there underneath the polyurethane. As this gets a bit clogged, just give it a tap, it comes out. And what we're going to do is reuse the old sanding. So let's get into those detail-y bits first. So the stripper's really mushed it up well. Okay, so what I do is just tap that out and then get myself a bit of our flusher, which I'll be showing you soon anyway. Get out a bit of a squirt, and that's good to go. So put that away. Now we grab our chunk of steel wool. You saw me at the start. So before I use this, you often see me using one of our blades, you know, and there and all that sort of thing. But the reality is I'm going to scratch in the centre there. That's got these horns extensions on the end, and it's not actually going to be that easy to not damage. And then how to get into there and all that sort of stuff. We saw me do that with the brush. And so when on the guide we say in part 1, remove the softened finish, we're not actually saying what with, because there's different ways for each project. In this project's case, let's just use a chunk of steel wool. So we just sacrifice up a bit of our wool. This is a German steel wool, and sorry, European. The German came from there. And we just give this a scrub, and what you do with the wool is you keep opening it up and just turn it around. And it's a bit of just a sacrifice piece. We're not too worried here. All we're doing is just smashing off the softened finish, and it's real fast, no damage to the wood. It's all wet, and that is that. Then we put a little bit more stripper on. Why is that, you might say? Well, what we want to do is get into the grain. The very, very first coat of polyurethane that was applied went deep into the grain, and it has gone right in, and we want to get that one out. So we've got off all the ones that are on top. We've got the second and third and fourth coats of polyurethane, but that first one is still deep in the grain, and I just want to get at that. So I just want to show you guys something. I want to give this a minute to do its thing. So if you can pan across there, Arthur, check out our floor. This is the floor we recently did on live stream, and it's come up really well. And this is an industrial floor, curry, with all sorts of lead and nasty stuff in there. And we did a live stream on that, so if you're interested in floors, go to the live stream on that. When I'd finished letting it have a good soak with the moisturizer, I wanted to show you. So, really cool. So if you're doing a warehouse apartment, a real good look, or if you're doing a coffee table or something like that. So anyway, that's the interlude. Back to the real thing. And now, so the reason for this coater stripper is to go into the grain itself and get any of the polyurethane that's lurking deep. Now, this is not going to damage the wood. Our stripper is virtually pH neutral, which basically means it's not acid or alkali and it's not going to bleach the wood. So another bit of wool, but this time a clean piece. The same grade of wool. This is our stripping wool. So when we do the scrubbing, we always scrub a wet surface. We're not scrubbing a dry one. We're not trying to grind it, sand it. We're just trying to scrub the wet surface, and it is quick that way. And give it a quick wipe. So what I've just done now is part 2 on the guide, which is stripping what's in the surface. And now the no sanding part of the system is what we're going to do now. And that is the part 3, which is flush the surface clean. So you notice that's coloured blue, and it says down the left hand column, spray scrub, spray wipe, and I'll show you why in a sec. Now, so here's the blue liquid in my pretty clean bottle, and we're going to give it a scrub with this pad. This is our grit embedded pad. It's a nylon pad that has a grit embedded into it. You might be able to see the sparkles. And well, there's my pretty bottle here. Now, so actually what I'll do first is I will do the grooves. Now I reserve my nice clean brush right to the end part here. So I'll go backhanded this time. So spray, scrub. So this is not a neutralizer. This is a paraffin-based spirit, which is designed to dilute the residues. Residues of polyurethane, residues of stripper, and anything else lurking there. There's nothing in the stripper that needs to be neutralized. What it's doing is, if we can get rid of those residues, you don't have to sand anything. Okay, so, and then we go to the pad. Now, why do we use the pad now rather than the steel wool? Well, these little grits I told you about, they get into the sandpaper grooves that are on the wood. So the person that made it sanded it, and there's little sandpaper marks left in the wood that are supposed to be there. You can't see them if it's sanded properly, but they're full of soft polyurethane from the stripping. And if we can just get those little needles, those little grits into the grooves, like a needle on a record player, it pushes it out of the grain. Which is why these are good on veneers and things, because we're not actually removing any wood. So there's your spray scrub. And let's see what I got there. See, it's all clogged up with goo that was in the grain. And now we get ourselves a clean rag, and on that guide it said spray wipe. And the reason again we use the paraffin based spirit as our base to our flusher is because it keeps the surface wet longer. If you were to use meths or thinners, it would dry so fast you don't have as much or nearly as much working time, which makes it more stressful for the person doing it. And you can see the rag picking up all those residues, which is where you want them on the rag, not soaking back into the wood. And Now, our broad knife that you've probably seen before, it's got this little saw edge down here. And we use it for getting into mouldings and things, but also it's really good for hanging on to rag. So it, get into those parts there. You say the devil's in the detail. And of course that's where things will peel if you haven't got it right. Now, if you are interested in what we're doing on our live streams and our videos, and you're looking for anything in particular for yourself, let us know. We're always looking for what you're looking for. And also, if you're interested in any of the products, you can go onto our website, which is hidden behind this, which is cooperstripclub.com, and have a look around there. And you'll find all that sort of stuff there. We air freight around the world, so you don't have to think because we're in New Zealand you can't get the product. Now, this is smooth as smooth as smooth. This is, when you feel this sort of thing, you can see why there is no need to sand, is because it's already sanded. Now, there's this whole conversation I always have about adsorption, and the whole thing of why that is the best surface for painting on. And you can see there how it's drying out, the flush is drying out, and it's going quite rapidly there now, which is good. Is that quite visual, Arthur, on the polyurethane to the wood there? So we've got, not too bad. So you can see that this is all glossy and plasticky, and now we've got nice water gain. A lot of times people want to paint a surface to give it, lighten it up, and then they see the strip surface and they go, oh, I think I'll keep my wood actually. Now, so if you're going to paint, you're ready for painting. If you're not going to paint, then you're ready for whatever else you want to do. You can re-polyurethane it if you want, you can oil it with a drying oil, like a Danish type oil, or you can use our fabulous moisturizer. Now, I didn't really mention before, I neglected, but the look it is when it's wet is the colour it will be with a new finish on. And so it's not, massive monster difference, but it's just going to be so more natural looking, which is this one's about. So let's find my moisturiser. So if you've not seen moisturiser before, here we go. So this is moisturiser. It's we call it a living finish. It's like a skincare for wood, and it's a blend of gum, oil and wax, and it's totally non-water soluble, which means it will repel moisture like water, so it's ideal on windows and all those sort of surfaces. And what we do is we strip, we flush, and then we can go straight on with the moisturiser. If you were polyurethaning or painting, you would really want to leave it a few hours before you put that on. But if you're moisturising, you can go straight on. Moisturizer's really easy to use. It's quite a good one for the kids if they're wanting to participate. It's a completely non-toxic finish, and you can get them into it and just slap it on. Now, it doesn't matter if it's hot or cold. Where we are today, it's raining, so it doesn't matter. There's a bit of, if it's humidity, it again doesn't matter. There's no sort of things you got to watch like that. If you were polyurethaning again and it was too humid, then you'd have a bloom that would take place and it'd be a problem. So what we do is we slap that on, and we now leave that on for 2 days. Now, 2 days is just a number I made up one day. What we're trying to do is give it as much chance to absorb into the wood that it can. So it's just going to drink. Remember, you've got this absorbent surface, so the moisturiser is now going in. And the next day what you do is you check it, you get your head in the wet reflection, and you look to see if there's any parts that have fully absorbed. There won't be a lot of absorption on this, not like say the end of a tabletop where there's end grain. This is more fine like that. Now, let's pretend it's 2 days. Go put another shirt on if you like. And you come back to it and you go, okay, it doesn't seem to be drinking anymore. So what we do is we remove the surplus. Now, it won't have dried. Don't worry if you come back to it and it's still gummy, because that's what it's going to be. It's not a finish that's designed to dry. That's why we call it a living finish. It's a finish that is really easy to maintain, and it actually gets better over time. So are you out there, Jason? Do you recognise this? I'll let him on the comments put where this shiplap came from. So down those bits there, give it another quick polish. And that's done. Now compared to the bit up top, that's just so much better. Like I say, it's not like black and white, but you've got a real difference between the yellowing polyurethane and the rich heart remu that's now there. And this has only had 2 minutes of moisturizer, not 2 days. In 2 days, this will just richen up heaps more and will be a way cooler finish. Now to look after it, so you just leave it alone. You do not polyurethane on top of this, so it'll fall off quite promptly. It might be, say, in a couple of years' time, you're looking at it, and it might have what we call a lackluster look. So what you do is you just brush another coat of moisturizer straight on top. You don't have to clean it first, you just slap that on. You then get your grip pad, give it a once over, and then leave it overnight, and then buff it up again, and that's it. Now, if this is a surface that doesn't get lots of sun inside the house, then it might be 5 years before it needs any more. If it's a heavy weather area in a foyer, then it might get an annual feed. But what you can bet on is you'll never strip it again. If you look up, if you just do that programmed, simple, quick maintenance, it's just so much simpler than having to strip it again. And once more, I'm talking you out of future stripping business, but there you go. So that's it for the day. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll leave you with Arthur doing a bit of a close-up, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.